Welcome, Mr. Elliott or Nick. Welcome to Behind the Surface. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited for you to be here too. This is my first time actually speaking to a professional sommelier in person, so I'm super stoked about that. I know your brand is the Wine Guy,
Correct.
correct? So could you just start off by telling us a little bit about what your brand is about and what you represent?
Sure, absolutely. I started the wine guide business about 5 years ago after moving to San Diego, California, and it really focused on wine education. And I really wanted to bring more awareness to the process of making wine and to the building of a wine brand and put the knowledge out there to people who weren't necessarily super familiar with wine, how it was made, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the original intention of the wine guy. Things have changed a little bit over the last couple of years where I had the opportunity to go on a wine tour, a wine cruise, and I realized that that could be something really, really fun for my business. So I've kind of over the last year and a half started incorporating doing international wine tours. Into my business. I travel pretty extensively anyway. San Diego is a home base for me, but we travel to South America, Europe a lot, anywhere where wine is a thing. That is pretty much where we go. For the most part, we also love the Caribbean, but I figured why not figure a way to monetize it? So that's where I am right now.
Well, congratulations and
Thank you.
everything you just said is exciting. Travel is exciting. Wine is exciting, and so is the Caribbean. So,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
um, so I want to know just a little bit about. Um, I know that I've seen like some of your episodes. It looks like you do podcasting as well. Am I correct?
Correct.
And
I have a
so,
pod.
what is and this might be and I know this is in fact just from me being uneducated in wine. There's so much more to wine than just how it tastes, right?
Absolutely.
I talked to you a little bit about how I love Frasier,
Yep.
and I love to, they have the wine club and just put the wine in their mouth, swish it around and spit it out. And it's a crazy thought to their dad, who's, just your average Joe. But could you tell me uh what what do you feel is involved in your wine expertise that most people don't really realize that you feel like you always have to explain?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, to answer that, I'll have to, talk a little bit about my background. My hospitality industry experience starts way back in the 90s. I went to culinary school. I learned about wine and, of course, food. And after moving to California, I got into the wine business in full, where I joined my wife's family business. They own a winery here in California, and I got into making wine and farming wine grapes. And went through the entire process from the ground to the bottle. One of as I mentioned earlier, with the wine education, I, the misconception, or not even misconception, the lack of understanding of what goes into a bottle of wine is what I try to imbue onto people. It's not just something that you snap your finger and it goes into the bottle and you
Mhm.
drink it. I mean, there's hours and months and days and years of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into every bottle of wine. And not that it's so much a misunderstanding. It's the lack of understanding. of
Mhm.
what goes into that final product and what winds up in your glass.
Right. There are so many like videos that I've seen and processes I've seen people do, the like grape stomping experiences, and
Hmm.
I've seen different people store things in like cellars, and people do like cellar tours and all those
Hmm.
sorts of things, and it's so cool and it's so fascinating. Could you tell me what are some of the experiences, like I know you say that you do tours, what are some of the experiences that you like to highlight, or some of your favorite parts about the winemaking process or about wine in general that you love to, like, if you had to share anything, what would it be?
Sure. Folks love the winery experience. I think that's the number one thing for most of my customers, my clients, the people who do tours with me, and so on. And what I mean by that is actually walking into the facility where wine is made, and seeing the barrels and the tanks and all of the equipment that goes into it, and the hoses and the pipes and all of that stuff. That is for me, having never experienced that, I recall that that was one of my most favorite experiences as a young hospitality person going into a winery for the first time. I was just astonished by all of the stainless steel and the wood and the
Yeah.
concrete and so on, and folks absolutely love that. So that is definitely the number one experience. And then on the nature side, of course, wine grapes are grown in beautiful vineyards, and so on. So going into a vineyard and learning the life cycle of a grapevine, and so on, that's also a super fun experience. And of course, the ultimate experience is sitting down and actually drinking the wine, and
Right.
learning to go through the process. Like you talked about with the Fraser show, them swirling the wine and smelling the wine and tasting the wine and then spitting the wine out. Those are all parts of the wine tasting experience. And that is also something that I do is teach people from start to finish how to really enjoy a glass of wine. But ultimately, I take a very laid back approach to wine. I'm not the stuffy, suit and tie sommelier who walks up to your table at the white tablecloth restaurant. I want wine to be very approachable for people. So my number one motto is you drink what you like and you drink it how you like. So no swirling, drink it out of a McDonald's, plastic cup, do whatever you want to do as long as you like it. That's what it boils down to.
I love that. I love that very relaxed approach. It does make it more
Mhm.
approachable. It doesn't make it seem so stush. Um, but we all know it tastes better in a glass.
Of course it does. Absolutely.
I've broken all of my wine glasses here at home, and I found myself recently having to use like my husband's rocks glasses, or like even
Hmm.
a coffee mug, and I'm like, I don't even want it now. Like um could you tell me, so one thing that I love about hospitalians or hospitality professionals is that
Hmm.
most people that I meet in the profession are so passionate. It's a passionate industry. We're passionate about all the things that we do.
Hmm.
I feel like in a lot of other industries, finance, things like that, you can find an accountant. Maybe that person wanted to be accountant since they were 3, or maybe they just maybe they just winded up in there, and more than likely is the latter. And so it's really fascinating and enjoyable for me to speak to very passionate professionals like you, who can say, like, in my youth I was able to walk through these factories and these processing units and look at the stainless steel and the wood, and be able to paint an image that still is in your mind to this day. You're able to create those experiences with others. And
Yes.
so I always like to think that if you're passionate about something, you might also, it's not definite, but if you're passionate about it, I'd like to think that you also think that it's important. And
Of
so with
course.
something like wine, I know a lot of things in hospitality, I think a lot of people make it seem very foo-foo, like it's just fun stuff. Could you please, from a professional, tell us how wine is and can be important, and how is it important to you?
Well, I like to talk about the community of wine, and what I mean by that is how wine brings us together as people. I talk a lot about that on my podcast. I talk a lot about that when I'm doing my trips, and it's true to put a bottle of wine in front of a group of strangers, for example, and everyone gets a glass, and next thing you know, 5 minutes later, we're all friends. We all know where each other's from, and how many kids we have, and what do we do for a living, all of those things, and yes, that could happen without the wine, of course, but I think there's something about it's very similar to sitting down and enjoying a meal, which hopefully includes a bottle of wine or two, and enjoying each other's company. I've got stories. One of my favorite stories is I was in France about 10 years ago, and I was at a dinner table with my wife, who was traveling with me, and there was about eight other people at the table, and this couple over there spoke Italian. This couple over there spoke French. This couple over there spoke English, and everything. And we all spoke different languages. By the time we were on our third bottle of wine around that dinner table, we all spoke the same language, if you will. Wine has a way of bringing people together, especially people who like wine, because you can talk about the flavors and the textures and the aromas and all of that stuff, and it gives you, for all of my professional networkers out there, it gives you an icebreaker. Something to talk about, and then you can expand upon that. Wine for me is important as a way to bring people together, and I see that every day of the week. I just got back from France again last Wednesday, where I spent 2 weeks going through the Bordeaux region of France, and I was on a boat with 10 other people, some directly in the wine business, some outside the wine business, but all hospitality professionals. And we all went from having no clue who each other was, to now I'm talking to some of them on the phone and things like that. Friendships, romances, business relationships, all of these things have connections to wine.
I love that. I love to hear that. I've recently interviewed some food and beverage professionals, two
Hmm.
prior chefs, and that's a lot of what is talked about. One of their favorite things about their profession is community, and
Yes.
um, that is so important. That what is life as a human without others, right? And so anything that we can do to bring each other together is amazing. And I love that we can all tie it back to that as a hospitality professional.
Hmm.
Any part of it, cleaning, like my background is in housekeeping in hotels.
Okay.
And so you need a clean space, you need a good bottle of wine, and you need a great plate of food.
What's better than that?
I love that. Um could you tell me, have you ever in your industry or in your profession, have you ever experienced a moment that we've talked about the happy, fun moments, but have you ever experienced a moment in with wine or in a tour or during a time where you are trying to create that experience for others where maybe you wish you could put out a PSA and say, hey, when you go on these wine tours, do these things or know these things before you go or take these things back. If you had a space, which that's what this space is, What is it that you would say to your guests, your consumers, your clients, that you wish that you could say more often?
I don't know how PC this is, but the first thing that pops in my mind, especially in the wine industry, and as I talked about earlier, is I take a very laid back approach to the wine business, drinking wine, tasting wine, enjoying wine, et cetera, et cetera. Not everyone takes that same tact. Wine enthusiasts sometimes can be know-it-alls. They come into a wine tour, and they have a tendency to try to kind of like take over. What's going on. You've got the professional there talking about wine, whether it's production or tasting or whatever the topic of the day is. And there are some people, and I've run into it quite often, who want to add their story on top of it and their knowledge and their and so on, and I think this goes for pretty much every side of hospitality, whether it's in housekeeping or washing dishes or whatever the case is. I was in the wedding industry forever and ever and ever, as well. So there's a lot of know-it-alls in the wedding industry.
I can imagine.
Um, so I guess humility and humbleness, I guess, is what I'm getting at. If you're going into a place as a consumer and doing whatever it is, let the professionals do their job, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make.
I hear you. I hear you. I respect that and I understand that. Before getting in the industry, I feel like that was me. I'm a know-it-all.
Mm.
Like I'm not only a know-it-all, I am a like fierce debater for no reason. Even if I don't know,
Okay. You're one of them. Okay, I
I
got
am. I am. But you know
it.
who's worse and who has really made me like reflect? My husband is worse.
Oh.
My husband is so funny because for years I thought he knew so much. And then I started to realize that he was just BSing the whole time. because he, and he admitted it too, like, yeah, no, sometimes I just BS. Like I just have to, keep it going. And so, but definitely being in the industry, I have experienced a lot of guests like that, and that has made me a lot more cognizant of how I show up in certain spaces because
Yep.
um it used to kill me to hear guests try to explain to me how they clean their homes in a public space. Like this is not this is not the same. And if we were talking about our homes, I may or may not agree with you. I clean my home completely differently than how I'm required to train my team to clean this hotel. Like so
Hmm.
I fully understand that. And it's a waste of time because you telling me what you do or what you know is not going to change how what I have going on here.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um
Absolutely.
so I love that. I haven't heard that yet. I love that. And I hope that all of the people that watch this platform and sign up for your tours know what to do and know how to show up when they come on your tour. Just be quiet and enjoy what you pay for.
Absolutely. Now, and don't get me wrong. I certainly don't mind interaction, and asking
Yeah.
questions and, having even a good debate, over, an opinion that I have, or so on. But, walking into a restaurant and telling a chef how he should plate, his or her meal, or telling a housekeeping professional how to fold their sheets, it's no,
Right?
absolutely not.
Agree. I just left. So I'm a former executive housekeeper. I've never worked as a
Hmm.
housekeeper, but I like went into manager in training, went to assistant manager, AEH, assistant executive housekeeper. Then I was an
Hmm.
EH for 2 years. So I've cleaned many of rooms, led many of teams in multiple states, and across different brands. So I've experienced several different cleaning products, different brand standards, and things like that. So I'm a little
Sure.
bit well versed in, how to tuck a bed. And I went to stay this past weekend in Cincinnati for Mother's Day, or the weekend
Hmm.
before. And when I checked into my room, immediately I was unimpressed with the way that the bed was tucked. And the housekeeper, the room attendant, the next day, I was walking out, and the way that I am, especially if I'm staying for a short stay, I'm a neat and tidy guest, anyways. I asked her, "Hey, am I a stayover on your board today?" It was Mother's Day. She was working. You have no need to come into. I don't need anything. I can grab towels from your cart. You do not have to service my room today if that sends you home faster. And she was in the middle of making a bed in another room, and I saw her making the bed the same way, and it took everything in every strand of my body not to enter the unit, because one, that is already a safety hazard. I know that I'm not supposed to. She's supposed to have her cart at least in front of her door, but whatever.
Right.
I wanted to go in that room so bad and be like, look, this is how. But I didn't. So I understand people invading your space and territory. Definitely interact, but have some respect for the professionals and what they're
Hmm.
doing, especially when you pay for the service.
100%. 100%.
Fabulous. And so that was one of my questions. Another question, this is still pertaining to PSA announcements, things that you wish that you could get off of your chest, or things that you quite often get off of your chest. Like I said, this is behind the service. So things that we don't typically see or know that happens in the wine world.
Hmm.
What are some um topics or events that you feel that take place that are so impactful, maybe impactful to the world, maybe like sustainability, or maybe more so impactful to you as a person or in your personal life? What is it that your profession has a significant impact on that you feel like maybe other people don't know and should know?
Hmm. Well, I mean, there are a lot of different topics I can talk about here. Hmm. That's a stumper, Courtney.
And so I can kind of give you an example of where my mind is when I ask that question, and maybe that might
Sure.
help. And
Please.
so I worked in housekeeping in hotels, and I think that I know that my family and my friends, knowing that I had a degree in hospitality and went into cleaning rooms, my entire job
Hmm.
was simplified to cleaning rooms. And
Got it.
it impacted me severely because I did way more than that. It was a uh, physical, laborious job. It took a toll on my body. It was a constant battle of, interacting with not only my team, but interacting with guests. And so it was
Hmm.
a constant, like, mental and emotional challenge. And it was a huge toll. But it took so much out of me mentally, emotionally, and physically that when I came home to my husband and my children, I didn't have enough to give to them. When I went to school, because I was also in school, I did not have enough to give to them, whether that was time or mental capability. And
Hmm.
my family did not understand or respect it because, girl, you just cleaning rooms. You going through all of that
Hmm.
for cleaning dirty rooms? Like, it's not even worth it. Why do you even like that job? Why are you still there? You have a degree. You can't do anything else. And so that was my experience. Do you have any experiences like that, maybe personally, or even larger outside of you, that you have experienced when it comes to being in the wine industry?
Yeah, I would say not so much anymore with what I'm currently doing. Because my child is grown and my wife and I are more or less empty nesters at this point. But I would say coming up in the wine industry, it absolutely does have an impact on surely because of the amount of hours, and another thing you pointed out was how laborious your job was, and the wine industry is also very laborious, depending on where you are in the
Yeah.
wine industry, and doing the job, picking grapes in the middle of the night, and that kind of thing, the amount of hours that it takes to run a tasting room and a restaurant, and all of that stuff, that takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your time. It takes a toll on you mentally, which then absolutely very similar to a lot of other hospitality people. And I know I'm talking right now, preaching to the choir, if you will, because we're talking to industry people. It's got an effect on your family, the time with your kids, the time with your partners, spouses, and so on. And you really, really do have to love the job, in order to make those sacrifices, to do um, a really good job, in your business. So I would say, very similar to you. I would have a similar opinion on that.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe you're preaching to the choir, but part of the inspiration for this platform was to show those that don't know, the family members
Sure.
of hospitality professionals, the partners of
Hmm.
hospitality professionals, because they really don't know. I still educate my family on things today, and when I was working in the hotel, I would educate them on things like they would make little comments like, I don't get why we have to check in like halfway through the day, like 3 o'clock, and then they would like, we're gonna see if we can check in early, and then when it's time to check out, they're like, I want a late checkout. I'm not. And I'm like, you guys are the reason that I don't come home. Yeah. And so educating them on those things. And so this platform is really for people that really just don't know. Me being a hospitality professional, I know that there's way more to your job than just recommending wines and being able to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
But I can't list the intricacies of your job. And actually, that brings me to my next question. What are those things that you do that you're like, people have no clue that I also do these things? They just think that I sip wine with people all day.
Sure. Well, that's a great question, because I think in most industries, but in the hospitality industry specifically, things are ever changing. New things are being added, old things are being taken away, service styles, or I mean, we could go on for hours about that,
Yeah.
but continuing education, is something that is vitally important to what I do. So I'm learning every single day, and by learning, I mean I'm reading books. I'm out there. That's the reason that I was in Bordeaux. Is I didn't have a ton of knowledge about the Bordeaux region of France, so I wanted to go to Bordeaux to learn more.
Yeah.
So I went into winemaking facilities, and I talked to winemakers and vineyard producers, and so on and so forth, because I wanted to know, for my own good and for the good of my clients, I wanted to know more. So, continuing your education, whether that is on the food side, whether it's on the hotel side, the front of the house, back of the house, restaurant, housekeeping, whatever that might be, making sure that you are up on the latest trends, the
Mhm.
things that don't matter to people anymore, and so on. Learn how to cut those out. I think that's as important as learning what's in is learning what's out, and so on. So I think that's a big part of it. Is
Yeah.
just keep on learning. Never think that you know enough, because you don't.
That is the truth. I want to add one thing to what you said, cutting out what you don't need anymore, but archiving some of the antiques,
Oh, of
because
course.
I definitely think that using antiquated methods or products or things like that, that's really, I think, that's kind of what makes an experience. You have a lot of people, even though technology and all these things are moving so fast, everyone wants what's retro or what's vintage or what's
Hmm.
authentic or what's more like the original method. And so that's I like that you brought that up. I've never considered it like that. And it's crazy that I didn't think about that. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in
Mm.
hospitality.
Wow.
And uh I am still learning, and every day it's constant. And techno your where you are in our field, yours it like I do cleaning. At the end of the day, while there are so much other things surrounding cleaning, clean is clean and dirty is dirty. I'm
It's pretty objective, yeah.
yeah. I've had that conversation so many times with like housekeepers or when I'm trying to like train or inspect a room. And I'm like, look, either the sink is clean or dirty. Why are we going back and forth right now?
Right.
But for you, like you said at the beginning of this, it's based on what people like. It is based on your consumer. It's based on science, the region that it's in, the soil that it's in, the weather that's in that area. It's based on history, how the people in that area develop that wine. It's based on culture, how the wine is consumed and when it's consumed, and with what it's consumed with. You your area, it just covers so many different areas of expertise. And
Mhm.
I can't speak for everyone, but I do think, even me, I'm saying it because I know it, but that's something that I have to pull from the back of my mind, because when I hear
Sure.
sommelier, I don't think about all of those things. I just think, oh my goodness, they can give me the best wine recommendation, and that is all. And they know wine. That's so cool. um but no, that's a great concept, just constantly reading and educating yourselves. And that's why it's so important too, not to show up to these tours trying to talk your little talk when you have someone who's like putting in crazy hours.
100%, 100%. Yeah, it's continuing to learn, continuing, and I think adaptability too. We can add into that,
Mhm.
whatever, it might be and I talk a lot about, especially the sales side of my business. It's learning how to sell to people, and everyone is different. So learning to talk to different people differently. Let's use a server, for example. A server in a restaurant is going to approach and handle a table of four who are 60 plus. In the restaurant, they're going to handle that table differently
Mhm.
than a group of 20-year-olds, at the table on the other side of the restaurant.
Mhm.
They're still going to get the great service, but they're going to treat those tables differently as groups, kind of
Absolutely.
thing. And the same thing applies to individuals as well. Is I'm going to treat individual A differently than I'm going to treat individual B, and not that, again, they're not going to get any better or worse service. It's how I talk to them. It's how I sell to them. It's the information that I give, and in the way that I give it as well is going to be different. Because at the end of the day, we want each of those groups, each of those individuals to be comfortable with us. And a big part of hospitality is rapport. And if I treat that table of 60 plus year olds the same way that I treat the table of 20-year-olds, the rapport is not going to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I've found myself even switching, like, feels like putting on a whole new uniform. Like, I'm walking through halls and I have maybe a bridal party on one floor and a slumber party on another floor, and like between switching the halls, like I can already feel myself switching how I walk, or like preparing to like smile or be,
Hmm.
or if there's a funeral in, like preparing to to be more empathetic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So For sure. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. If I'm ever at a table and we're talking wine, though, I would like to be with the 60-year-olds. For sure.
There you go. Absolutely.
For sure, for sure. Um, and this is my just weird little brain. I thought of it when you were talking. I'm wondering, are you able to like, or do you feel that you have found a knack for being able to profile people and kind of already have an assumption or a pretty good idea of what type of wine they prefer just by looking at them? Do you feel?
I try not to ever, well, again, let me go back
Hmm.
to my experience. I think it'll inform my answer a little bit more. My having worked in the wine industry for so long, and the restaurant industry for so long, and the hotel industry for so long. And to add more color to it is I worked in Carmel, California. Carmel, California is one of the most affluent, uppity, if you will, very, very high. It's where Pebble Beach is, the golf
Okay.
course,
Mhm.
five-star hotels on every corner, and so on. So it's a very, very high-end area. And what I learned over my time in that area is you cannot judge a book by its cover. I mean, I knew that before, but
Yeah.
really, because there would be people who would just walk in and they had on sweatpants and dirty sneakers and a raggedy top and so on. And then after talking with them for a while, they're the CEO of a Fortune $500 company, and they
Yeah.
just wanted to come in and have a glass of wine, and so on. So, and vice versa. People, come in with the spangles and all the bling and their hair and this, in the world, and I've seen both sides of that coin. So looking at someone and judging it, no, but after about 30 seconds of talking with someone, I can
Yeah.
typically get you like that.
I understand that. That was my experience. So, my very first job in hospitality, I interned at the Four Seasons, and I saw a little bit of every level of the the like financial statuses. I I saw it all, and so I fully understand what you mean. And then after that, I worked at so same thing. And because of the location of it's in Amelia Island, but it's very, very, very close to Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, things like that. And so the wealth that we saw come in there, they were more like Duck Dynasty wealthy. And so that was the presentation. That those were the guests that we got at coming home. And so it was fun. The guests were fun and it was very interesting. It was fun to be able to see that presentation um and serve those guests with the same. No guest got served any differently.
Of
But
course.
you're right, whoever approached that front desk, you never know. You never know. So I was just wondering because I know, working, maybe I've never worked in food and beverage, but maybe working in food and beverage, maybe if you own your own restaurant, you get a few people that come in, you can probably already guess like, oh, I know they're probably gonna order the chicken, or they look like a salad person. So I'm like, maybe there's a tell when it comes to wine.
Yeah, I don't again like to say that wine is, there is an air about wine, that is a little more high end, if you will. I don't like to think about it that way because I think it's for everyone. There are price
Yeah.
points for everyone. If your favorite wine is a $5 bottle of wine from Trader Joe's, fantastic. If you prefer the $300 reds from Italy, then fantastic. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But I can. And I would say it's usually the way you carry yourself, and probably age has a lot to do with it as well.
Mhm.
And I'm saying this strictly from the wine side. Is if you are a bachelorette party, coming in, I already know what you're going to want to drink. You're going to want a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, ice
Yeah.
cold, and that's what you're going to want to drink. If you are again, to use your example, the funeral folks, and they're talking about you know the amazing person that they just lost and things like that. They're probably going to want the bottle of red, or a glass of red wine, things like that. So I think it's very circumstantial, as well. Just yeah, I don't know if I
Mhm.
can expand on that any further.
And you don't have to answer this question because I know that, like you said, the way that you represent wine, you want it open, and that is your brand. So I don't know if this question will contradict your message, but do you have any personal pet peeves? Like the wine guy says, wine is for everyone, however you like it. But is there anything that Nick Elliott is like, I can't stand it when people, like for me, when people put ice in wine, I want to like break the glass. So, are there any of those things that you're like, just stop doing it?
um to be very honest with you, no. I feel in my soul that you should enjoy what you enjoy, however you want to enjoy it, and that absolutely goes to wine as well. Is a funny story. So my wife, in another lifetime, was a restaurant manager,
Mhm.
and she managed a restaurant that had been around for, at that time, about 35 years. So it was a very established, not high end, definitely not white tablecloth, but not counter service either.
Mhm.
It was a nice restaurant with good food, good drinks, full bar, et cetera, et cetera. So it also had an established a set of locals, who would come.
Mhm.
And a lot of those locals would come in and they would order a glass of Chardonnay, and they would, ask for ice cubes to put in it. And they would also want to add some sweetener, to their wine to, yes, exactly right. you know, which, wine people are like, oh my God, and my wife would joke about it, as well, and my response would always be, so what? If they like it, if they're paying the money for it, that's number one. If they're buying the bottle or they're buying the glass from you, what does it matter what they're doing with it after the fact? If they're enjoying it, that's really all that matters. And that's the way that I look at it. So no, I don't really have any pet peeves when it comes to wine.
What a good man you are, Mr. Nick Elliott. My husband just told me like a couple of weeks ago, and he's been keeping this running joke, which I know is true, but I like just shoo him off about it. But like, I have a control issue, and I could not. I'd be like, "Are you sure you want this sweet? How about you try it first?"
That's a mom talking right there. That's how do you know
And
you
that's
don't like
how,
broccoli, son? It's
right?
have you tried the broccoli?
And it's true, opposites attract. We are such a great balance because it's that way with my babies. And I have two girls, and
Hmm.
I've always had a pretty expansive palate. Like even as a child, I would eat like sliced tomatoes with my mom with some ranch
Hmm.
or salt and pepper. Like I loved veggies as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I'm so blessed to say that like my children do too. For
Hmm.
snack, they can just munch on bell peppers. And I love that because one of my pet peeves are picky eaters. Like I don't know how to
Hmm.
like manage that. Like it annoys me so much. And so they're not picky eaters. There are things that they don't like, and I fully understand that. I'm not gonna like, for example, my 3-year-old doesn't like certain beans. So I am
Hmm.
not the mom to force her to eat those beans. But she has to try it at least once. So now we
Sure.
know she doesn't like the beans. But I can't, we're not leaving the table until you have a real reason for not liking the beans. Like, did you even try them? Same thing with my 2-year-old. She eats with her eyes. She will push a plate away several times and then finally, like, touch it with her tongue. And then now the plate is
Hmm.
clean.
Right.
And in my mind, I guess everyone is my 3 and 2-year-old. And if I just convince them to try it the way that I want them to, they will they will have it. So the patience that you have, I admire, because one of my personal goals is to be patient. I don't know who to blame that on. It's easy to blame it on my parents.
Absolutely.
It's easy to blame it on them. My parents are impatient people too, but I know that I could do much better. So it's great to hear that. And maybe it is the wine. Maybe, and that's a great personality to have, to be a wine professional who wants a pushy sommelier, who wants a bossy sommelier. Like wine is to gather and enjoy and relax and feel better. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Mr.
Of
Elliott, for your
course.
work.
My pleasure. I am a very patient person in most aspects of my life, so I also take that to my job.
Good. No, I love, so, and not to talk bad about your wife at all, because I just said that, I can be controlling. Is your wife like more opposite than you when it comes to things? Is she more direct, and does she have her preferences?
Yeah, she is absolutely, type A, the CEO type. She was a CEO. She's a business manager, she's very, fastidious about a lot of things and very specific and so on. And, there's certainly some control, that comes with that as well. Um, that is definitely part of our relationship, and I've had to learn, from being her husband, and her learning from being my wife, about the patience and the laid back nature, that I tend to bring to the relationship.
Well,
Absolutely.
congratulations. Great pick. Those to me
Thank
are
you.
like that combo. That's some of the best relationships. You see those two people, your relaxed man and your type A woman. You see those people together until their last days. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're celebrating 21 years of marriage this year.
Oh, that's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
She I can imagine she's probably saved your life in so many ways, or at least tells you she I tell my husband that all the time. I'm like, I'm saving your life. You don't know it, but if you didn't have me, like today, you would probably be somewhere so far off. Okay, I am saving your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she often tells me that, if it weren't for me, you'd be
I just love
absolutely.
her. I love her already. Well, Mr. Elliott, are there Nick, I'm sorry. That is
Okay.
me. That is just, I call my daughters, they're 3 and 2. I call them ma'am. So forgive me. Um
Not at all.
but Nick, could you tell me, are there any other messages or any thoughts that you have or something on your heart that you would like to put out to the world as we conclude? Maybe a message from a sommelier.
Yeah, I mean, I take this aspect or I take this tact towards most aspects of my life is, just enjoy and be happy. That is the most important thing. That's the most important thing to me, is I don't understand people who aren't happy. I mean, we all have circumstances, of course, whatever that might mean for you. We all have
Mhm.
circumstances, but people who, go out of their way to make themselves unhappy, I never understand that mentality, and whatever that might mean, finding something you love, someone you love, a thing that you love, and just really, really enjoy it, be passionate about it, whatever that means, to you is that's such an important part of life. And I think that we as human beings spend way too much time thinking about the negative, thinking about, the yeah, yeah, just that air of negativity on us all the time. I don't
Mhm.
like that for me. I don't like that for my family, and I don't like it for the people around me. And if be positive, be happy, find something that you love and do it.
I love that. Thank you. And if you just can't be happy, grab a glass of wine.
Absolutely. I love that advice. I love that. Now we can't say that to every person in the population,
Yeah.
but it certainly doesn't hurt. If you're of age and can
Yeah.
handle it, go enjoy a glass of wine. And if you need any advice, call the wine guy.
Call the wine guy. I will definitely have all of your information, links, and anything that you've sent me, and any access to you and your business, and how to book tours and your podcast. All the things about the wine guy will be in the description box in all of my platforms for this episode. Thank you
Thank you.
so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nick, for your time today. It was so exciting and peaceful talking to you. This interview was like having a glass of wine. It was very relaxing and fun and positive, and I loved that. And it was real. And so, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today.
It was my pleasure to be here, Courtney. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
When are you coming home?